Hello, today I'm here to talk about Kamikaze. While many of you think about the term Kamikaze in regards to the Second World War, we can trace the term way longer back than that. In 1274, the Mongolian ruler Kublai Khan was busy trying to conquer Asia and beyond. Mongolians ain't making a lot of impact these days, but back in the day they were kinda badass, wrecking just about every land from Eastern Asia into parts of Europe. Due to lack of avionic technology in the 13th century, they had to cover all that ground mainly by foot, horseback or by boat. Now, the Mongolians were truly awesome when it came to horses. I mean, if the Mongolians from that era could be in our current Olympics, in any event, including riding horses, they would crush their opponents. And by crush I mean that they would, well, crush them, and probably get disqualified, but still the point is that they are very good at riding horses. Now, what does this have to do with Kamikaze? Well, thank you for asking myself that question. Well, you see, no matter how awesome Kublai and his gang was at riding horses, they faced a significant problem when they wanted to get to Japan. Since Japan consists of islands separated from the Asian mainland, they would not really be able to ride over the sea, or walk for that matter. If you're not familiar with horses, all I can say is that they are not very practical animals to cross the sea with, and still some 700 years later evolution has not enabled them to nurture this talent. Now I suppose you could swim, but if you do not understand why that would be a bad idea, I suggest that you try it out for yourself in full medieval battle armor and let me know how you did. Fortunately, people of the 13th century around the globe had since long before invented floating devices known as boats. These so-called boats could carry a substantial number of people or various goods. With the boats, Big Boss Kublai sent his army to conquer Japan in 1274. Now, why the hell have I been rambling about this nonsense when I was supposed to talk about the term Kamikaze? Well, thank you again for that question. You see, back in the 13th century, the daily weather report after the 6 o'clock news didn't really... well, it didn't have that great ratings in Mongolia, or any other country for that matter. The reason for this is many, but I'm gonna go with a lack of electricity as one of many important factors for this. So, King Kublai Khan sent his ships with his army to go medieval on Japan, and well, let's just say he should have watched the weather report. If he actually could, which he couldn't, but should have. Well, anyway, the point is a big freaking typhoon came along when the fleet sailed away and crushed his army. Oops. The Japanese would later go on to call this, Kamikaze or Divine Wind. So, did Fafri just tell me a bunch of crap to get to that conclusion? Yes, I did, so deal with it. As for the better known events of the Pacific War between the Japanese and the Americans, the so-called Kamikaze pilots would crash the plane they piloted intentionally on enemy targets. The reason they could do this was that the aviation technology now had been made available, and they could also stack a ton of explosives on the plane and create an even bigger explosion. This was a big leap forward, since you could pack far less explosives on a horse, and hence why that idea probably never was really implemented. There could be other reasons, but I'm gonna stick with it for now. Here's a nice little clip I found of the real deal from the 1940s. I could not find one from the 13th century, probably due to many similar factors preventing Kublai Khan from watching the weather report.
Then it struck.
So there you go, that's Kamikaze explained by someone having nothing better to do. Whether Japanese pilots actually jailed Leroy Jenkins as they crashed remains highly unlikely, and if you did not get the reference, you can just search it on YouTube or click the annotation on your screen. Also note that Kamikaze pilots was not that common as many would have you believe, and many who crashed wasn't predetermined Kamikaze pilots. Rather than being captured or just die, many chose to go down and take out some enemy targets in the process. Hope you enjoyed this presentation and that you somewhere in all this rambling learned something. If the only thing you learned was the lack of television in the 13th century, I would sue just about anyone responsible for you growing up. And I mean everyone, from your parents to your school teachers. See ya.